Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
What's going on, Mets fans? And I'm going to be completely honest with you right from the start. This video is going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. Some of you are going to disagree with me. Some of you are going to think I'm being too harsh. But what I'm about to lay out is a question that every single Mets fan needs to be asking themselves right now. Did the Mets disrespect Pete Alonso? Did they treat their franchise icon, the guy who hit 226 home runs in 6 years, like he was some replaceable piece that didn't deserve basic professional courtesy? Hit that like button if you think Pete deserved better, and stick with me, because the more you learn about how this situation actually went down, the angrier you're going to get. Pete Alonso is now a Baltimore Oriole. He signed a 7-year, $155 million deal to leave the only organization he's ever known. And the narrative that David Stearns and the Mets front office wants you to believe is that this was a business decision, that they evaluated Pete's value and determined the market was too high, that they made a calculated choice to allocate resources elsewhere, that this was just smart baseball operations. But that narrative is complete garbage, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. The Mets never made Pete Alonso a contract offer, not one. Let me repeat that because it's so important. The New York Mets, with Steve Cohen's billions of dollars with unlimited financial resources, never put a single contract proposal in front of their franchise home run leader. They never engaged in negotiations. They never started a dialogue about what it would take to keep him. They just sat back and watched as Pete explored free agency, as other teams made him offers, as Baltimore eventually signed him, and through all of that, the Mets did absolutely nothing. Now tell me how that's not disrespectful. Tell me how that's just business. Because from where I'm sitting, when you have a player who's been the face of your franchise, who's been beloved by the fan base, who's produced at an elite level for 6 consecutive years, and you can't even be bothered to make him an offer, that's not business. That's disrespect. That's telling a player that you don't value him enough to even try to keep him. That's saying he's not worth your time or effort. And let's be very clear about something. Pete wanted to stay in New York. Multiple people close to him have confirmed this. He loved playing for the Mets. He loved the fans. He embraced the pressure of the market. He built a life in New York. This wasn't a situation where Pete was desperate to leave and the Mets couldn't do anything about it. This was a situation where Pete was open to staying. His agent, Scott Boras, was waiting to negotiate, and the Mets just ghosted them. They acted like Pete didn't even exist. Think about that from Pete's perspective. You spend 6 years giving everything to an organization. You become the all-time leader in home runs through your first 6 seasons in franchise history. You play through injuries. You show up every single day. You handle the media. You connect with the fans. You do everything right. And when it comes time to discuss your future, when it comes time to negotiate a new contract, your team doesn't even pick up the phone. How is that supposed to make you feel? How is that anything other than a complete slap in the face? And here's what makes this so much worse. It's not like the Mets were cash-strapped and couldn't afford Pete. Steve Cohen could have signed Pete to a 10-year, $300 million deal, and it wouldn't have impacted his lifestyle at all. The man is worth $14 billion. He just got approval for an $8 billion casino. Money was never the issue. So why didn't they make Pete an offer? Why didn't they even try? The answer is David Stearns. And this is where the disrespect becomes even more clear. Stearns decided before even entering negotiations that Pete wasn't worth what he was going to cost. He decided that first basemen are overvalued in the market. He decided that power hitters can be found cheaper elsewhere. He made all these decisions based on his small market analytics and his Milwaukee mentality, and he never even gave Pete the courtesy of explaining any of this to him directly. Pete found out the Mets weren't interested in keeping him the same way everyone else did, through the media, through reporters saying the Mets weren't expected to make Pete an offer, through watching David Stearns be linked to other free agents while his name was never mentioned in connection with returning to New York. That's humiliating. That's degrading. That's treating a franchise player like he's some random bench guy who doesn't deserve an explanation. And you know what really drives this home? After Pete signed with Baltimore, people close to him started talking about how hurt he was by the way the Mets handled it. They said he felt blindsided. They said he expected at least some kind of offer or conversation. They said the complete silence from the organization genuinely shocked him. This is a guy who gave you 6 years of elite production, and you shocked him by not even pretending to want him back. How is that acceptable? Now, the Mets apologists are going to say that making an offer when you don't really want the player is disingenuous. They're going to say it would have been worse to lowball Pete just for appearances. And you know what? That's nonsense, because the alternative to making a real offer isn't making a fake lowball offer. The alternative is having an actual conversation with Pete and his agent where you explain your thinking, where you say, look, we value what you've done here, but we're going in a different direction, and we want to be honest with you about that so you can plan accordingly. That's how professional organizations operate. That's how you treat people with respect and dignity. You don't just ghost them and hope they figure it out on their own. You have a conversation. You show them that even though the business decision might not work out, you still value them as a person and as a professional. The Mets didn't even do that basic level of human decency. And let's talk about the message this sends to other players. When you treat Pete Alonso this way, when you let your franchise home run leader walk without even making an offer, what does that tell other players around the league? It tells them that the Mets don't value loyalty. It tells them that no matter what you do for the organization, no matter how much you produce, no matter how beloved you are by the fans, the front office will discard you without a second thought if the numbers don't align with their spreadsheet analysis. That's a terrible reputation to have. That's the kind of thing that makes it harder to sign free agents in the future, because players talk, agents talk, word gets around about which organizations treat their players well and which ones treat them like disposable assets. And the Mets, under David Stearns, are rapidly developing a reputation as the latter. Edwin Diaz can tell you about being blindsided by the Devin Williams trade. Brandon Nimmo can tell you about being traded without warning. And now Pete Alonso can tell you about being allowed to walk without even a conversation. That's 3 major players in the span of one offseason who were treated poorly by this front office. That's not an accident. That's a pattern. And here's what really gets me. Pete Alonso was everything you want in a franchise player. He was productive. He was durable. He was marketable. He was beloved by fans. He embraced the pressure of New York. He was a leader in the clubhouse. He represented the organization well. And the Mets couldn't even respect him enough to make an offer or have a conversation about his future. That's organizational dysfunction at the highest level. You want to know what disrespect looks like in baseball? It's not trading a player. It's not non-tendering someone. It's not even lowballing them in negotiations. Those are all business decisions that happen all the time. Disrespect is acting like a player who gave you everything doesn't even deserve your attention. Disrespect is treating a franchise icon like he's invisible. Disrespect is letting a guy who hit 226 home runs for you find out through Twitter that you have no interest in bringing him back. That's what happened to Pete Alonso. And no amount of analytical justification from David Stearns is going to change the fact that this was handled in the most disrespectful way possible. Pete deserved better. The fans deserve better. And Steve Cohen, who promised to run this organization with class and excellence, should be absolutely furious about how his front office treated one of the most important players in recent franchise history. So here's what I want from you in the comments. Do you think the Mets disrespected Pete Alonso? Do you think they should have at least made him an offer or had a real conversation with him? Or do you think this was just business and Pete needs to get over it? Because I'm telling you right now, the way this was handled was unacceptable, and it's going to have long-term consequences for this organization's ability to attract and retain talent. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for more honest Mets content. Drop your thoughts below. And I'll see you in the next video where we continue breaking down the disasters of this offseason and holding this front office accountable for their decisions.